And welcome to Unity in the Community. The Unity in the Community show embraces the city versus diverse cultural communities, the music, the arts, and healthy lifestyles. On this special edition, I would say, on Unity in the Community, it's very important that everyone listens attentively because of the nature of the conversation we're going to have, because it involves education, it involves the whole entire city of Worcester. As some of us know, the city of Worcester is broken up into four quadrants. You have the North High, you have the South High, you have Doherty, and you have Burncoat. And joining us today is Nick Stellitano. He's a consultant, education consultant with Dillinger. He's going to share with us how the whole process is going about. The city of Worcester is trying to realign itself. And you're probably asking the question, why is it doing that? And that's why we're here to have that discussion and represent what's going on. So, Nick, welcome to Unity in the Community.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So, Nick, how did it all start when the city of Worcester decided that, you know something, there's some changes going on our community, and the changes are going pretty fast. And we have to hire someone outside to come in to, no pun intended, realign us so that then we can have equality and also making sure that our kids are served in an efficient way when it comes to education.
Yeah, great question. And we were talking right beforehand, and it's important to sort of, I think, identify the fact that this is actually happening across the country. In today's day and age, a lot of different states and districts are starting to see, in many instances, a decline in enrollment. That's not what's happening here in Worcester, but it could be a change in enrollment. It could be a change in overall, what we like to say, infrastructure, meaning, you know, there's new buildings being built, there's old buildings that have to be closed down, there's changes in overall neighborhoods and overall demographics. And so Worcester, amazingly, over the past 30 years, has changed fairly dramatically in terms of its overall population, the way the population is made up, and more importantly, where the population is living currently. A couple of the different analyses and whatnot that we've done and that we've tried to communicate with various folks has showed that there's obviously huge pockets of populations that are moving into Worcester and obviously creating, we'll call it stressors within certain schools, right? So when people move in, generally speaking, schools, if you live within a certain proximity of a school, your child will go to that school. And so if a lot of people move in and, you know, ultimately a lot of those kids need to go to that one school, you start to see schools that are now overcrowded. We use terms like utilization and overcapacity. And really what that is saying is in an ideal situation, a classroom should have anywhere from, depending on the grade level and depending on what you're teaching, anywhere from 18 to 25 kids, right? And so ultimately, that is the sweet spot in which the teacher can really, I think, engage a lot with the different students. And so when you're in a position where a lot of people have moved in and now you're at 25, 30, you're trying to figure out, okay, what classrooms are available? How do we do that? You're creating not an ideal environment. And so districts like Worcester and many other districts within Massachusetts will usually say, okay, now's the time to take a step back and rethink how are our current boundaries, meaning if you live in, you know, this neighborhood, you're going to go to this school, how are those all laid out? And so what typically most districts will do, if they don't have the internal ability to be able to do this themselves, is they'll put out what's called an RFP, or a request for proposal, which will basically say, hey, we're looking for a firm that has specialties around, and in this case, using geospatial analysis, right? That's taking geographically located data and being able to analyze it, having the ability to facilitate and have community forums, really thinking critically about how you're trying to create a really thorny problem and create the best solution that you possibly can. So in the context of Worcester, they had put out that RFP. My firm, which is Dillinger Research and Applied Data, put in a proposal, and sometimes it can be from various companies from around the country. Just so happened we're right here in just over the border in Connecticut, and we were excited because you know, I'm familiar with Worcester and I'm always happy to help local districts. And so we put together a proposal that basically details how we would approach the problem, how we would work very closely with the district, how we would engage with the community, how we would engage with the school committee to essentially co-design the next iteration of what Worcester Public Schools would look like. And so, you know, I think a lot of people assume that that proposal will basically be like, here's the solution. And in the context of Worcester, which has dozens of schools, a very complex interconnected neighborhoods, the solution is very thorny, right? And so you have to look to engaging as many different people as possible to get as many, both, I think, insights about the nature of what's happening in different streets and in different neighborhoods to be able to create the best solution for the student as we possibly can.
I appreciate you explaining that, because by listening to you in reference to how this all how it all started and how it created, I can't help but think back when Worcester was 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago. I've been here for a while. And at that time, Worcester was almost in a sense, was trying to find their identity. And Boston dominated the headlines all the time. And then in some instances, they brought in consultants, they brought in different people. How do you market Worcester? And how do you appreciate Worcester? And at one time, people living here didn't really appreciate being here, because it was always like this bedroom doormat community in a sense.
Right.
And we were always trying to find this identity. Providence was excelling, Boston's excelling. And they're saying, wait a second, Worcester was going back and forth with Providence at one time in the census, that the communities were, one was leading versus the other, being the second largest city in the state of Massachusetts. But then I was wondering, by listening to you, I'm wondering if anyone ever thought that, okay, when the light finally shined on Worcester and Worcester finally found this identity, and now now they have found it because of all the real estate and all the economics and everything. I'm not sure it was designed that way, or was it because of the fact that they were forced into it?
Yep.
But then now that it has arrived, I'm wondering if they considered that, okay, we've always wanted extra units here as far as apartments, as far as property goes. We've always wanted the businesses here, check. As I said earlier, the apartments here, check. Yeah, we always wanted, hopefully, infrastructure to be improved and so forth and so on. Now that it's here, did you take in consideration the fact that it was going to shift the communities as well, and shift the live stream in reference to how the city of Worcester is going to operate in the future? So do you think that they thought about that, or they were just focused on, allegedly, we're just guessing, or do communities think about that? Because you got to be careful what you want, because of the fact that you want all these businesses, you want all these apartments, you want all this infrastructure, and you want all these different improvements. And there's some things they forget off the table that might affect the nature of what they're requesting.
Well, I think you're identifying, and I'm no city planner,
okay.
So let's sort of like call it out there. But I think that is the nature of the challenge of what you're facing, right? Cities, especially when you're talking New England does not have, I would say, cities that have been planned in a very rigid, systematic, organized way. There are ultimately, winding roads, one-way roads, tight alleyways, different buildings that were built on different buildings that were built on other, interconnected buildings. And so what you're basically sort of, I think, identifying is the challenge of you're growing, but growing within a framework that was designed 200 years ago, that didn't understand or appreciate the multi-family housing units or the different apartment buildings. And so, a lot of what we're hearing from parents, we'll call it kind of like even basic. So I'll use the term infrastructure, right? Ultimately, is the infrastructure within Worcester keeping up with the pace of where and who is coming in and sort of moving in? And so one of the things that I know we've heard loud and clear is around transportation. Ultimately, you would ideally love to have every kid taking a bus to school. I'm sure we can appreciate all of Worcester's traffic challenges and roadway challenges. And so that, I think, pushes a lot of kids having to walk. Well, I know, and I've heard that there's not a lot of sidewalks, right? And so how do we create safer zones and safer ways for children to get from their house to the school? Never mind in the springtime, but in the wintertime when snow is piling up, right? That's a whole nother challenge. And so, yeah, I think you're hitting on the tension point that is growth is a good thing, but growth keeping pace with the overall city landscape, I don't think is ever done perfectly. And it's one that needs to ebb and flow with the flow of the population as well.
Yeah. And the second and the third thing is the fact that, okay, so now that the city is right where it wanted to be, where it wants to be after all these years, we'll say, okay. And the second thing is, okay, can all this growth, can the city streets handle this growth as well? Because one of the main issues was the potholes after a strong winter, the climate, the snow, and everything that comes with it. And plus now the high usage, because now you got more people on the roads, okay? So now can the street handle it? And not only that, since you brought in the buildings as well, can the water structure, the sewer system structure handle the system, the situation as well. So one is the education, two is the roadways, and three is the waterworks as well. They take that in consideration, all this growth, going back to the beginning when they said that, okay, we want Worcester to be something. And trust me, they were trying a lot of different things to try to create an identity. Now that it's here, and I could see for myself, and I can answer my own questions just by watching and listening to people. Okay, all these units are up, and you see some units that don't look like the same units of the 3-family units as well. You see one unit looking like modernized, let's say suburb unit. It's next to a 3-family that's been here, as you would say, for a while. Is the continuity there, or they're just plopping and planning anything there? So those are the three things. And I've asked a couple of people, especially city councilors as well, that now that it's here, did you take consideration there's going to be a shift in education? Did you take consideration the roadways is going to be more highly used? Did you take into consideration also the fact of the water system?
Well, so I can't speak exactly to the city sort of planning aspects, but I think this is directly ties into the realignment process that the overall project is focused on. So to your point, I think where we have control in terms of really thinking from a school-based design perspective is how are the schools themselves organized to support the populations that are within their areas, right? I think a great example is pre-K. Everybody has sort of identified the fact that early childhood education is such a vital starting point for both families and specifically the kids themselves. And, you know, as I think you're kind of indicating, right, in many ways over the past many years, if you're not taking a step back and sort of seeing the whole picture and trying to design the system, right, you start to create an ad hoc, or as I like to call it, a Frankenstein system of like patching it together to make it work, which when we look at the current landscape of pre-K school classrooms right now, that's kind of what we see. We see a misallocation of where preschool classrooms are to where they could be better served. And so part of this process is to really take that big picture, step back and say, okay, we know the populations, right? If we think about the 4 quadrants, especially on the southern portion of Worcester, where it's the north and south quadrant, that's where we're starting to see a lot of our population densities. And that's where we're also starting to see a lot of students who are, we'll call it higher levels of need, that could benefit from Head Start programs, could benefit from a local neighborhood pre-K classroom. And so part of this is really just saying, okay, we know we have a couple different classrooms, you know, maybe outside of where the higher density populations are. So let's take those classrooms, move them to where those higher density populations are to meet the needs of where the students are. And so that in some way is a microcosm, I think, of what you're asking for, which is how do we reallocate the key resources that could benefit the kids and the families in a way that is localized, is in their neighborhood. And then you start to, and maybe this is kind of what you're getting at, thinking more holistically about the neighborhood itself as a cohesive unit.
Yeah, and prime example is too, and before we go to take a pause here, is the fact that this actually happened. I'm not trying to bash Worcester by any means. This by experience. Downtown, for instance, had a structure, and it had a pathway, whereas they curved around, and they had a mall, right? Was the Galleria.
Yep.
And they'll curve around Front Street and go around the Commons and so forth and so on. Well, someone had an idea to say, hey, why don't we level the mall? Because the mall was thriving at one time. And of course, wasn't thriving. It was there. And they were trying to address the situation. And someone said, why don't we just go through the mall so we can connect to Union Station? And when someone came up with that idea, it was like, people couldn't see that. It was like, this is impossible. The person basically got rocks and mud thrown at the person, like, what are you, crazy? And then what happened was 3 years later, someone brushed off the plans, right? And as they brushed off the plans, they realized that's not a bad idea. And guess what? They came back with the person and they end up tearing the mall down. It goes straight to the Union Station, and the person got an award. So we'll come back. We're going to continue our discussion on this alignment here in the city of Worcester. And Nick Stellitano is joining me. He's an education consultant, and he is part of Realigning the City of Worcester when it comes to education. You listen to Unity in the Community with Ernie Floyd on Unity 979, Worcester's Community Connection.
Hey, this is Ricky Duran, and you're listening to Unity Radio on 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy Q, host of the Woo 508, and I'm here with
Your girl Liza, Miss Consistency.
And it's your girl Chantel in the building.
Yes, y'all. Go ahead and follow us everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, the Woo 508. That's THEWOO 508. Woo!
Feel me a skin, roll me a bone, step into the groove, now you're in the zone.
Boston and Worcester, get ready for one of the biggest Ghana-U.S. business and cultural experiences during the FIFA World Cup season. Join us for the Ghana-Worcester-Boston Trade and Investment Exchange 2026 happening June 24th and 25th, bringing together government officials, investors, businesses, entrepreneurs, diaspora organizations, and community leaders from Ghana and the United States. Day 1, June 24th at Hyatt Regency Boston. The Ghana-Boston Trade and Investment Summit will feature powerful B2B and B2G networking sessions. Special guests include Ghana's ambassador to the United States. Day 2, June 25th, Worcester Common. The energy moves to Worcester for the Ghana-Worcester Trade Fair, a free public event filled with food vendors, products, shopping, culture, entertainment, networking, and community engagement. This is where business, culture, diaspora, and opportunity come together. Learn more at heritagetriage.com/events.
Tune into The Sustaining Life with Susan Tioulette, and together we will find our way to a healthier, healing lifestyle by listening to empowering stories of overcoming our struggles. Join me, Susan Tioulette, on The Sustaining Life every Wednesday from 5 to 6 on Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection. See you soon.
You're listening to Unity Radio, Worcester's Community Connection.
And once again, welcome back to Unity in the Community. I'm Ernie Floyd. The Unity and the Community Show embraces the city versus diverse cultural communities, the music, the arts, and health lifestyles. And Nick Stellitano is joining us. He's an education consultant, and he's playing a real amazing factor when it comes to realignment here in the city of Worcester. If you live in the city of Worcester, you're in for a treat, I would say, in some instances, and you're also into some challenges as well. And the whole landscape of the city of Worcester, Central Massachusetts, is changing. And Nick, welcome back to Unity in the Community.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I want to finish off that story because of the fact that the person put the plan together, and as the person put the plan together and suggested, okay, let's go straight through the mall and go connect Front Street with City Hall. With Union Station. And like I said, that person got blasted, and like nobody's business, right? And then someone thought of the idea later on. The mall wasn't doing that well, so I guess it was the last resort, and they thought maybe the person has an idea, maybe this might work. So they end up leveling the mall, and then now there's a connection. And later on, it was just so funny. I observed the whole thing from afar, and the person got an award.
No, and I will say we're not hoping for a award here, but
No.
You kind of bring up a great point, which I really wanted to emphasize, was that the collective sort of the collection of ideas that we can gather from not just one individual or myself, but really from the community is really what we're striving for. It was interesting. So a couple things. We've hosted about 5 to 6 different community forums, some in person, some online. And we've also listened to a lot of folks' desire to have a Spanish only forum, which we did online, which was a really big success. We had, I think, close to 100 people show up and really got to hear a lot of the challenges that a lot of parents are facing. And so I really want to emphasize to folks who may be listening, right, like the scenarios and sort of the design options that we're coming up with, they're not fixed, they're not predetermined, and nor do we know ultimately at the end of the day where we're going to end up. And so it's really, really important to understand that once we get back to August, we're appreciating the fact not a lot of people like to engage in the summer. Mm-hmm. So we're waiting till about August timeframe to start going through scenarios. And that scenario process will be iterative, in which we will push out a very comprehensive, here's how it could look. And then we're open up to in-person meetings, virtual meetings, surveys, as well as partnering with the subcommittees with the school committee to engage with different folks to help inform that process. And I really, really emphasize, and I cannot say this enough, I do not know what it's going to look like, right? And so when people come and say, here's why this is not going to work, or here's why this could work, we are all ears, because ultimately it's really that ground level appreciation and context that's going to shape it. And I'll give you a quick anecdote. We worked over in Andover district to do a very similar process of redistricting. It's much smaller, obviously, than Worcester, but still the same idea. And one of the design aspects that we had done was sort of shifting a neighborhood over to another particular middle school. And it came out that, like, it might seem like it's close, right? And in the context of Worcester, people will laugh, but like it's within a mile. And so it should be totally fine. And what we found, given a lot of the engagement from the community, was like, yes, it is close. It is horrendously dangerous for kids to walk to school. And so they even got to the point where they pulled us in. We went and did the walk together, and it required a lot of passing through a lot of different motorways with no walk zones and no walkways. And it really was an emphasis around the idea that, like, this is just not tenable. And so we just, we changed the design and we sort of moved on into a different direction. And so that's really incumbent and vital that, folks, as you might say, take, now's the time, right? Like, now's the time to really start to provide us with insight, because that's how I think the community can really help shape the direction that Worcester goes.
And especially the fact that Worcester is a bigger community, it's really imperative that a lot of people come out, because of the fact that you're designing this, and you're coming up with some consultation, and you are coming up with some suggestions. But think about it. There's 5,000 employees, roughly, there in the Worcester public school system. There's 25,000 students in Worcester public school system. And you have these quadrants, okay? You have North, you have South, you have Burncoat, you have Doherty. And you're having a variety of different meetings to inquire, to hopefully people will come out and give their input in reference to this whole alignment. And the numbers not there, unfortunately,
right,
to be there so that people can make an input, or say what they have to say, or whatever their concerns are. I hate for them to be reactionary after the fact, because after that, it's too late. Right now, you're emphasizing, and the school department's emphasizing, once they put that information out there through Parent Square, through all the different websites and services, it's imperative that parents come out to these meetings and find out what's going on. You're adjusting it by addressing the languages, check. You're providing food, check. And the information is really important. I want you to emphasize the importance that parents need to get out there and find out what's going on, because what they're experiencing now this past school year, that's not going to experience next year.
Absolutely. And I think, so this Thursday, I'll be going to the school committee to kind of just give a very quick update in terms of where we are, but more importantly, engage with the school committee around what I call decision points. And those decision points are, at the end of the day, when we start to look at scenarios, how do we measure both the efficacy, the value, and did we make improvements, right? And so, again, I'll kind of come back to the pre-K example, where I think it's easy. The pre-K example is somewhat easy, because right now, if I was to look at the number of full-day classrooms, and are they in a area or a neighborhood where the most of the pre-K students are, the answer is no. So I know right away where I can give you I can give you a scenario where, hey, look, I'm adding way more pre-K classrooms over here where there's tons of kids, and I'm moving a Head Start program over here where there's tons of kids in high need. That's a win. Can we all look at the data and say, yes, that is strategic where we need to be? A lot of the other design options when it comes to boundaries are a little bit more subjective. So we really try to ground a lot of our design processes in ways of saying, okay, what does the community value? And ultimately, what are we trying to accomplish? So a couple things that we've heard, transportation being a huge, big aspect. And we're hoping that we could align bell times to help sort of improve the amount of kids that can take buses. We're looking at, again, simply the overcapacity, right? We should not have any buildings that have way too many kids, right, that are bursting at the seams. And we're also looking at, which I know is the confusing nature of current boundaries, right? And this gets back to the 30-year process of ad hocing, buildings closed, and all this other stuff. So we have something like 9 different boundaries that are disconnected. So you have the school over here with a circle where kids go, and then you have some other area way over here that they have to go to that school. And it logically doesn't make sense. So how do we minimize, if not eliminate, all of those? How do we align the elementary, the middle, and the high school boundary lines so that you don't have a set of kids in elementary school where certain kids will go to this this middle school, and certain kids go to that middle school. A lot of people value the idea of having kids stay with their cohort as they move up. And that ties into the neighborhood aspect of things, right? Like, how are we establishing neighborhood schools to where pre-K is offered in a walking distance, that they can attend the same pre-K school as they do the elementary school, so on and so forth. So a lot of this has come up through parents, and I have had the pleasure of talking with a lot of parents. To your point, I would love to talk a lot more to parents. Just to kind of flag, we have an email that is posted on the website. We have the website on the district. We have been coordinated with the FACE folks at each school, and they've been doing an amazing job. I know we're going to have some different folks from different nonprofits that have also been engaging. And so all of these areas, to include the different surveys, to include the up and coming parent engagements, are all opportunities in which we are hoping to hear from and engage with parents. And I was really happy. I just want to say thank you very much for inviting us here, because these are other areas that we can certainly engage with.
Thank you. I want to go back to the pre-K that you mentioned earlier. This is a prime example, okay? You go back to the pre-K and you're saying that on the survey, it says on this side of town, there's a little stretch, and on this side of town, the heavy popular density. And you're trying to adjust the pre-K. We'll say Worcester Public Schools has more pre-K on one side of town versus the other,
right.
but the resources are opposite. Okay, so
Correct.
do they have to like take the resources from that particular school to come over and fill that other school that has the less resource, and then vice versa? And number two, how do you balance it? Whereas you might have a nonprofit in that neighborhood too as well, such as a YMCA, such as a YWCA,
yep.
which also may host pre-K programs as well. They're playing a role in reference to meeting the need, in reference to your consulting as far as the education plan of realigning going forward.
So now you have hit on the extreme challenge when it comes to realignment. In certain instances, right, you can make everybody happy. As I always like to say, in many instances, you can't make everybody happy, right? And so part of the challenge is, and this is one of the reasons why I was excited about coming to the school committee meeting on Thursday, is, let's not look at any scenarios yet. Tell me what's important to Worcester, right? And people, the way they react and the way they think about scenarios look very different when they know, or they don't know what's going to happen to their neighborhood, and then they know what's going to happen to their neighborhood. That can look very different. So part of it is grounding it in these, like I said, decision points where it's like, okay, what do you value? In terms of pre-K, yeah, I mean, sometimes it is the reallocation of classrooms. But in the case of Worcester, and in case of working with the district leadership team, right, early childhood is a very important goal of what they're trying to accomplish. So part of it is not only, I don't think we're minimizing the reallocation, but increasing the number of classrooms that are available, and more importantly, increasing the number of full day programs. So part of it is a design of the operation itself. And other parts, you do have to reallocate the resources. But I think that's why grounding it in, if I look at, for instance, North District, right? They have, I'm making this up, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but let's say 28% of the pre-K population. It's slightly more than what you would think, given the, the nature of a quadrant. It has probably like 30%. But they don't have 30% of the pre-K classrooms. So how do we move, or at least achieve 30% of the pre-K classrooms, so we know that the need is being met by the resources at play?
Yeah, so you're talking about the pre-K, and you're talking about those classes, but what happens when that group grows up? So are you back here another 5 years from now, or another 10 years from now for that shift as well?
Great question. So part of what we're trying to do is not only look at the now, and we have to balance what's happening now to ultimately what is going to happen in the future, right? And so sometimes we've been working closely with the city to identify different apartment complexes that are going to be coming on. Some of it is about growth projections. Some of it is about projecting out. And yeah, I mean, there is no perfect solution in that regard. But, and I will say, like, I've met tons of people who are like, I don't care about people, I don't care about the 10 years from now. I care about the now.
Right.
And so part of our job, being the third party nonprofit, is I have to help you and remind you, right? Like, there's the now, there's the future, and there's a lot of stakeholders at play here that we have to try to listen to and try to balance.
Well, you have the mayor, you have the city manager, you have the school committee, and you have the city council. And that's when my question to you when it was off air was, does a city council play a role in it? And you said yes, but mainly the school committee. And when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. We have we have Nick Stellitano, education consultant with Dillinger, and he's joining me here on Unity and Community. And we're talking about the city of Worcester as far as its quadrants, as far as realignment when it comes to education. and everything else. So you're not going to want to miss this, except the fact that I encourage you to be involved, and we're going to let you know how you can be involved right here on Unity in the Community, on Unity 979, Worcester's Community Connection.
Unity Radio. Worcester, we've got you.
Boston and Worcester, get ready for one of the biggest Ghana U.S. business and cultural experiences during the FIFA World Cup season. Join us for the Ghana Worcester Boston Trade and Investment Exchange 2026 happening June 24th and 25th, bringing together government officials, investors, businesses, entrepreneurs, diaspora organizations, and community leaders from Ghana and the United States. Day 1, June 24th at Hyatt Regency Boston. The Ghana Boston Trade and Investment Summit will feature powerful B2B and B2G networking sessions. Special guests include Ghana's ambassador to the United States. Day 2, June 25th, Worcester Common. The energy moves to Worcester for the Ghana Worcester Trade Fair, a free public event filled with food vendors, products, shopping, culture, entertainment, networking, and community engagement. This is where business, culture, diaspora, and opportunity come together. Learn more at heritagetriage.com/events.
Kiva Centers is a leader in peer-led support, recovery, and mental health services, creating spaces where individuals can explore healing, rediscover hope, and embrace the fullness of who they are.
Starting in Worcester, reaching all across Massachusetts, and extending to Las Cruces, New Mexico, Kiva Centers is lighting the path forward through connection, community, and recovery. Learn more at kivacenters.org. That is KIVA Centers.
Everyone has a community, a neighborhood, school, place of worship, or other chosen groups. Communities can provide support when you need it, including helping your kids avoid underage drinking and other substance use. Learn more at talktheyhearyou.samhsa.gov.
Let's talk, Worcester. Unity 97.9.
And once again, this is Ernie Floyd, and you listen to Unity in the Community. The Unity in the Community show embraces the city with its diverse cultural communities, the music, the arts, and healthy lifestyles. And we're having this healthy discussion about education and realignment right here in Central Massachusetts. And we need some more help when it comes to resources and information. And we're going to do it right here with Jennifer Herring. Jennifer Herring is with Worcester Education Collaborative. And of course, joining me was Nick Stellitano. He's an education consultant, was assigned to the city of Worcester, and he's here to save the education maze.
Appreciate that.
And Nick, thanks for joining us again. So as we continue this conversation, one of the things I wanted to get into, one of the challenges is the fact that, as we mentioned earlier, pre-K might be oversaturated on one side, but don't have the services per se. And one side, on the other side, pre-K may be, what is it again? Not as saturated, but yet has all the services. And so you have to start making some adjustments in that. But what about the situation that we started alluding to, which I'll get right into the details of the fact that when you have a family and they have a neighborhood and they're all going to the same school over a period of time, but all of a sudden, when you guys make the decision, well, when the school committee makes the decision and they start drawing those boundaries and those lines, and all of a sudden you might find that a family that was going to school together with their neighbors, okay, and all of a sudden they're going to the right and they live across the street, and another team is still continuing to go to the left. And families are not going to be too happy about the fact because they thought that their siblings, not only siblings, but their neighbors and their cohorts can all go to school together in happy harmony. And it's not going to happen in some areas going forward in the future.
Yeah, you are hitting on, I think, one of the extreme challenges that come along with realignment because, you know, as you use the old adage, right, you are building the ship while you're flying it or building the plane while you're flying it. That's, in essence, sort of what we're trying to do. I'll sort of say, I'm gonna try to stick very technical here for a second. There is the plan, right? Like that is ultimately what we're trying to achieve through the engagement of a lot of different folks to design the best plan that we possibly can for all of Worcester, right? And I do try to emphasize that a lot in regards to we're really trying to think through how to best maximize the educational experience for every single student, no matter where they're located within Worcester. And I think that's a really important point that we always have to try to kind of continue to revisit. Where it does get tricky is, as you're saying, a lot of parents were like, well, you know, what's going to happen to me and what's going to happen to my kid? And ultimately, how does that work? And so part of it is the plan discussion, and then part of it is what we call the implementation discussion, right? So I try, and it usually never works, but I try to separate out the two, because the implementation can look a lot of different ways, right? There are ways to legacy students in one building before, you know, and once they, you know, leave that building, now the change happens, or you start the change at the kindergarten level. And so there's pros and cons to everything. And I think, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, small towns to, you know, cities of Worcester face this sort of dilemma. You know, do you rip the Band-Aid off and just move everybody at the same time and understand and appreciate that everybody's sort of going through that? Or, yeah, do you try to prioritize and identify various students that need the supports, like, you know, your fifth grade, you know, your transition students, should they finish out their last year at the schools that they're going to? I always like to say, right, like if we could do everything, we would. And, you know, if we could legacy everybody and do that, that costs a lot of money usually. And I know a lot of districts would do it. We are working in a world. So, you know, the one thing I always try to, there's a technical solution, there's the political solution, and then there's the administrative solution. They all have to kind of work together. And so there is no perfect technical solution that can't account for the administrative and the political. And so a lot of it is sort of accounting for how do we make the best impact for as many kids as we possibly can to set Worcester up for future success, to not be able to deal. So one other piece I'll kind of flag for this, right? Is it better to have a kid who is in a school that is at 110% capacity, right? So you are in a kid that has a classroom that has way too many kids in it. Or is it good to move the student to another school, and then now they're getting a much better, more representative educational experience, right? I can't answer that for a lot of people. I can hypothesize and say, hey, I think this is the best solution, but it requires a little bit of a challenge on the student's part. I know, and I can empathize with students and with parents, right? The fear of moving a child from their school to another school is extremely scary. And we understand that, and we work very closely with the district to figure out how best to support those kids. But it is, in the end, you know, I moved my kids, I think when they were in first grade and kindergarten. And yeah, I was like definitely afraid, and they're resilient, and they'll survive. And it is tricky, and I don't want to generalize for everybody, but kids are pretty adaptable, and it's pretty amazing. And especially if they're getting a better educational experience, sometimes the juice is worth the squeeze in that regard.
Jennifer Herring's joining us, Worcester Education Collaborative. You work with Nick in a lot of meetings. You guys discuss a lot of different things through email and Zoom, and you had a chance to right now. I'd like to present Nick as Jennifer. Jennifer is Nick. The first time you guys had a chance to be in person. So Jennifer, please share with us, how does the Worcester Education Collaborative come into this whole fold in reference to trying to improve or suggest some solutions to the situation?
Yeah, so we are part of the working group. And so what we're hoping to do is try to be as representative as possible of community voice, right? We know that Worcester is huge. We represent about 26,000 students. And so how do we make sure that we're taking into account all of the concerns and the realities of the day-to-day lives of our students and families when we're making this decision? Something that comes to mind on all of the public forums that I've sat in on, hearing comments from concerned parents, is for me the question of what would it take to create a school system where families would be satisfied or feel whole and complete no matter what school their child is assigned to. And I think that's where Worcester Education comes in, Worcester Education Collaborative comes in, where our goal is to advance excellence and equity in education. And we do that by highlighting the stories of our students in the district. And so for me, aside from hearing what the immediate urgent concerns are from families and students, I'm thinking, okay, how do we get it to where all schools are considered desirable, right? And we know that our schools all have amazing teachers, amazing leadership. And for whatever reason, there's a disconnect in the public perspective or the perception of what schools are more desirable than others. And so we're only going to keep growing as a city. We're only going to keep growing as a nation. And so how do we create systems and strategy in place to make sure that all school assignments feel like a win? So that's the lens that I'm going into this with.
Well, I want to compliment both of you guys, Nick Stellitano, education consultant, as well as you, Jennifer Herring, Worcester Education Collaborator, because you're steering everything in the right direction. Okay, number one, you're saying all the right things. Number two, and number three, the evidence is there possibly for success for everyone. But the problem you're going to face is, and you already kind of said it, but you're alluding to it, but not saying it directly, and I will say it, is the fact that you can sit down with the parent and say, this is the best plan. This is you're going to be prolific. This student of yours is going to excel, and everything is right here for you. And but you know, so when it's going to come with, it's going to come with that discomfort because of the fact that they're not going to go to their favorite school. They might not be able to eat their favorite ice cream or drink their favorite milk, and they might not even be in their favorite neighborhood. They have to go somewhere else to achieve this particular success for your child.
Right.
And so now the parent has to make the decision that, okay, being uncomfortable, but seeing the success of my child, is that more important, or should I be more comfortable, and should I fight to make sure that I'm comfortable on behalf of my child and make sure that I make everything the status quo? And so you guys are there on these meetings trying to comfortably with the right words and say, that's nice and stuff, but we really see you over here and you can excel over there. And they're saying, no, we want to be comfortable. We want to be in our own house, make it happen and make that decision. So now you have to go back as a consultant trying to figure out, okay, how can I make this family happy? But don't forget, you mentioned earlier, Jennifer, too, you're saying 26,000. I was being generous. I said 25,000 students.
Yeah,
and how do you guys make this all come together so that everyone's happy? That's basically what you're saying.
Right. And I think one of the things that I appreciated at, I want to say it was the Doherty meeting where you showed, Nick, the demographic breakdown of each quadrant. And what struck me was the rapidly increasing number of economically disadvantaged children across all quadrants. And so I'm thinking, you know, that's an equity issue, not their status as far as, you know, qualifying or being classified as economically disadvantaged, but if there is an overpopulated school or quadrant with students with high needs and an underpopulated area of the city with students that maybe don't have as many needs or lacking as many resources, but have more space and opportunity to teach students, to me, that's the perfect justification to start making some shifts, right? So I think for me, I can see the rationale and the data behind the decisions that are being made. I think the challenge for us as educators and leaders in the community is making those data points clear and our rationale clear to families so that it feels less of a loss, for lack of a better word, if you're moving from one preferred school to a new school.
Yeah, it all sounds nice though, Nick. It all sounds nice. Once again, it's going to go back to the fact that who's willing to step up and say, okay, I'm in. In the sense that I'm willing to move, I'm willing to relocate for the best approach or the best hopeful outcome for my child. Whereas other people are going to be like, nope, I'm not moving. You guys fix it. Make sure I'm comfortable. And at all means necessary, I'm just going to stay right here at the expense of potentially affecting their child's growth going forward.
So I completely agree, plus one to everything you said. And I will add, and I know we're just about up at break, but I think the one additional thing we try to add to, and I think this is going to be key, is having transparent conversations. Because at the end of the day, I want to hear from everybody, especially the people who don't want to. And I think part of what's currently happening within Worcester is I think there is confusion and or just an unknown about how decisions are currently made on where kids go. And I think even if we can sort of build upon that and make more clear, and I would say reduce the inconsistent nature of how kids are assigned, because one of the bigger data points that we found was, I think on average across Worcester, over close to 15% of kids are going to schools that are not in their neighborhood. And that's a lot of kids where, again, who and why and how the decision's being made, from what I heard from a lot of parents, that is the big question of the day, right? And so how can we go through this process. And again, I'm naive in some of this way that the more transparent we can be and the more honest conversations we have. And so I've had the pleasure of talking with people who are like, no, and I'm like, I hear you, but this is why. Like I'm going to disagree, and this is why. They're mad, but they at least appreciate the candor, and they appreciate. And so I promise, I'm not going to lie to your face. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm thinking in terms of why that design process is in your best interest, even though sometimes it might, to your point, be discomfort.
Yeah. So you're saying the fact that whatever situation they're in right now, you're asking the question, why are they there? And how did they get there? Because now that situation has to change. And you're saying that no one's putting their hand up saying, hey, I made that decision, or the school system made that decision, or whoever made that decision, maybe several administrations ago may have made that decision. So you're not getting that answer per se. In order to determine where you're going, you have to know where you come from, okay, in a sense. So when we come back, we have Jennifer Herring. She's Worcester Education Collaborative. And we also have Tony. I keep calling you Tony. Nick Stellitano.
I'm Italian. It still works.
Maybe because Tony's at the end. So I'm trying to, anyway. Nick Stellitano, he's joining us. He's an education consultant. And it's very important you listen to this conversation because it may affect you in the future right here on Unity in the Community. I'm Ernie Floyd on Unity 979, Worcester's Community Connection.
Telephone man, there's something wrong with my line. What's up, Worcester? I'm Angela Gray, and you're listening to Unity Radio 97.9, Worcester's Community Connection. When I dial my baby's number, I get a click every time.
Tune in to Affirmations with Alex, and together we will affirm our way to a healthier mindset by listening to empowering messages. Hi, I'm Alex from Affirmations with Alex. Join me every Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. on Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection.
Boston and Worcester, get ready for one of the biggest Ghana U.S. business and cultural experiences during the FIFA World Cup season. Join us for the Ghana Worcester Boston Trade and Investment Exchange 2026 happening June 24th and 25th, bringing together government officials, investors, businesses, entrepreneurs, diaspora organizations, and community leaders from Ghana and the United States. Day 1, June 24th at Hyatt Regency Boston. The Ghana Boston Trade and Investment Summit will feature powerful B2B and B2G networking sessions. Special guests include Ghana's ambassador to the United States. Day 2, June 25th, Worcester Common. The energy moves to Worcester for the Ghana Worcester Trade Fair, a free public event filled with food vendors, products, shopping, culture, entertainment, networking, and community engagement. This is where business, culture, diaspora, and opportunity come together. Learn more at heritagetriage.com/events.
Everybody's right here. What's up, it's Summer Walker, and this is Push One. My name is Stellitano with 2 eyes. Yo, what's poppin'? It's Kendrick Lamar, letting y'all know.
What's good? It's Metro Boomin.
What's up, it's Summer Walker.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy Leon Thomas.
Log into Club Unity every Friday and Saturday, 10 to 1 on Unity Radio, 97.9 FM. Let's go.
Hi, this is Raymond Lopolito, the general manager of the Worcester Smiles Football Club, and you're listening to Unity Radio, Worcester's Community Connection.
Well, I'm gonna start out with Nick Stellitano. Okay, there you go. The consultant, education consultant, and you're not Tony. Is there Tony supposed to be visiting us? Probably not. Okay, he's part of. He's with the other committee, other consultant. Jennifer Herring's joining us, and we're having a tongue-in-cheek conversation with the Education Collaborative. But at the same time, this is a serious note. It's going to really come down to whereas Nick, you're going to present it in the best way possible on how to build this pizza and make this pizza and make it taste really good. Okay. In some instances, people may say, it doesn't taste really good for me, but you're going to say it's to your benefit down the road. And
Right.
some of us don't want to be comfortable. Some of us want to be comfortable, but some of us don't want to wait for change down the road. They want everything to happen right now. But you're saying what's going to happen is you're going to get in front of the committee and you're going to put forth your best plan. And some people are going to like it and some people aren't going to like it. And so, but you don't make that decision though. You're just consulting. You're just advocating for what your suggestions are. And ultimately, school committee members make the decision.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit of clarifying sort of comments to that. So, right at the end of the day, our point or our job is to design the best scenario that we possibly can. That will be informed by as many different voices as possible. And so ultimately there are some major, I would say, easy wins that we can get at. And then usually the devil's in the details in terms of the boundary lines. And so I think it's important, because I was just mentioning it to you, right? If you think about Worcester in its current form right now and how the history around various decisions like you've made in terms of boundaries and schools, right? There is a lot that is tied to that. These moments in time where there can be a redesign of what is and how we can improve upon what we know to be are either old or misaligned or just downright bad historical choices. Now's the time to sort of make those decisions and make those decisions in a way that can benefit not only the current generation, but the future generation. And so I think you have to always put it into that context. And I think, a lot of people don't ever think that they're in those moments, those times where like, hey, this decision can actually have a profound impact in decades to come. And I think Worcester is in one of those moments where there is a lot of change that can potentially happen. And it has to be sort of embraced. It's scary with change, but there are just so many, I would say, things that I look at when it comes to Worcester's boundary lines that I'm just like, my God, why is that the way it is? And that should be so easy to switch and to align. So I would just encourage people, right? Like the next 6 months, because the vote, as you said, with the school committee is not going to happen until December. There's so much time to engage, to talk, give your ideas, and to really help elevate how Worcester could be rethought of in terms of today's context, not 30 or 40 or 50 years ago.
So Jennifer, being the Worcester Education Collaborative Executive Director, what role do you play in reference to this? You mentioned it earlier, but how can you just elaborate even further and also share the importance of how parents need to get involved with this process?
Absolutely. So as much as possible, whenever there's an opportunity presented, I think parents should definitely take advantage of advocating for their children. Our role in the community, one of our many roles, is the convener. So we create space and we host gatherings for people to share concern and to exchange information and resources about what's happening today in education. Right now, the hot topic in our community is literacy. We also just had graduation requirements released by the governor's office. And then local to Worcester is our district realignment project. And so what we're working on for this upcoming academic year is scheduling our monthly meetings to think about how can we create space for families and community members to voice their concerns and even success so far in the process. I think it's always important to acknowledge success and thinking about ways to reimagine and recreate this opportunity. So, we'll be hosting our monthly convenings as usual, and we're always available to hear from parents and students as well. And we also host workshops and learning opportunities specifically for parents around these issues and any other concerns that come up. So it's definitely a community-wide effort.
Yeah. How do people find you?
Me? I mean, I hope they find me.
How can they find you?
Oh, I thought you said, how do they find you? Like,
I know where you are.
I'm like, I hope they like me. Yeah. They can find us on our website, wecollaborative.org. We're also on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can also email me at Jennifer, JENNIFER.Herring, like the fish, at wecollaborative.org.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it out there again. We have 20, according to you, Jennifer, 26,000 students.
Yes.
There's 5,000 approximately employees with the public schools.
Yeah.
And Nick, you having these meetings out there, these quadrants. Okay, you have north, as you mentioned earlier, south. I don't know what it breaks down as far as the quadrants go. I'm not a math major by any means, but as far as north, south, Burncoat, and Doherty. Okay, that's not enough numbers, because we got excited about 100 people. Think about that. 100 parents out of 26,000 students that attend our schools.
Yeah.
They got to show up, because I could guarantee you, once the decision is made, because the decision is going to be made, they're going to be very reactionary at the end, and going to say, I didn't know about it. I wasn't aware. How can you make this decision? Who made this decision? And you're going to say what?
I'm gonna, I will say, well, and I will answer that
Thank you, Nick. I
in
want you
concert
to.
with Jennifer as well. So
Okay.
I think one of the value adds of partnering with Jennifer and her organization, as well as other organizations, is you had mentioned it earlier about the working group, but one of the key stakeholders that we are trying to elevate and meet on a monthly basis is this working group that has a combination of nonprofits, to include Jennifer, district leadership, as well as multiple parents from different quadrants. And part of that is to help have a very intimate gathering of individuals who have, I think, a clear understanding of what Worcester is, what it could be, but more importantly, what the lived experience of a lot of parents and different stakeholders from around Worcester is. And so part of what our job is to help facilitate various conversations about, here are some key decision aspects that are coming on the horizon. What should we be considering? How do we think about it? Pre-K was a great one. We had a great conversation about, do we want classrooms in all elementary schools? Do we want to have centralized learning centers? And so there's a lot of things that have to be unpacked from various different folks. So what I will say is the decision was made to the best of our ability through as much input as possible from a lot of people from around Worcester, with the ultimate end state of trying to, again, I'll emphasize this, make the impact across all students within Worcester, and make sure that they, and when I mean they, I mean every single student within Worcester, has the best educational experience that they can possibly have.
Jennifer, I'll leave it with you. Give us some closing comments in reference to, before we go, the emphasis that you can provide in reference to making sure parents show up for these meetings.
I mean, your voice is important. Show up to the meetings, give us your feedback. Even if things don't, the outcome is not completely in your favor, it's good to have the data and it's good to have the perspective, because in another project or another decision that has to be made, we already have the input and the feedback from families. So always show up, whether it be a Worcester Public Schools meeting, whether it be a WEC hosted meeting, meetings hosted by community partners. Your voice matters, and that's how we make our decisions.
And Nick, as a consultant?
Yes, I would encourage everybody, please, if you just Google Worcester Realignment, it'll bring you to the district hosted website where all of our presentations, all of the videos, and all of our information is there. We do have a district hosted email. It's alignment@worcesterschools.net. I also encourage people to email me at my consulting email, nstellitano@dillingerrad.org. We can be found on web. I cannot stress enough, I will happily listen and talk and engage with as many people as possible.
Thank you once again. Nick Stellitano, Education Consultant for Worcester Public Schools. Jennifer Herring, Worcester Education Collaborative. We encourage everybody, the students as well, and also the families, to get out there and find out what's going on, because this is going to affect everyone's future here in the city of Worcester. Once again, you've been listening to Unity in the Community. I'm Ernie Floyd on Unity 979, Worcester's Community Connection.